In the last 3 videos in this series discussing why soldiers fought in lines, I've covered a few of the physical elements of warfare during the long 18th century, the nature of the weapons, things like that. But there is another element which made these large, close-fitted linear formations so sensible when compared with more dispersed formations, and especially in the century's later years with the rise of large conscript-based armies, it may even be considered one of the most important elements, that of morale. But before we come to it, a quick word on behalf of this video's sponsor, Exter. Well, hey there, little Timmy. Enjoying your first day as a soldier?
Oh boy, am I? Well, at least I think I am. I don't know. You know, there's an awful lot of things I have to carry.
Well, of course. Your haversack, your pack, overcoat, belting, and of course that heavy musket to boot.
And my personal effects, too. Oh, I've had the darndest time carrying around all my cards and cash, you know. I've hardly even got room to fit my old bifold wallet into my trousers.
Why, an old bifold wallet? Oh, little Timmy, what are you doing with that? You should have an extra wallet instead.
Extra? Tell me more.
Well, the extra wallet has plenty of room to carry up to 12 of your cards plus cash, while its sleek and modern design only takes up a fraction of the space, as your old bifold does.
Oh, why this should work very well on campaign, I dare say. And oh, look, I just love the clicky click of this quick card access button.
Oh, I had a feeling you would. It's made of a fine leather and comes in all sorts of different styles and colors you can choose from. It even has a nifty solar power tracking device that'll help you find it through an app if you ever should misplace it.
Hold on, you're starting to lose me. What's an app?
And remember, little Timmy, to visit the link in the description today to get up to 25% off your order. And you'll be needing to save that cash because you're about to pay for all of that new fancy equipment at a stoppages from your pay.
Hold on, stoppages? What are stoppages?
Thank you to Exter for sponsoring this video. Ever since the advent of rapid-fire small arms and modern artillery and the like, one of the most important elements of warfare has been to prevent one's soldiers from clumping up in combat. While the NCOs of the 1750s would be shouting for their men to mind their dressing and keep ranks, the NCOs of 1950 would be better served in warning their troops to not bunch up, to spread out, to take cover. The reasons for all that are obvious. Large bodies of people all grouped up together make for much larger targets. They're not able to take cover as effectively, and of course a single mortar round could take them all out in one go. If you tried to have a dense column of men marching in close order through a 21st century battlefield, it wouldn't take long for them to have a pretty bad time of things. It's why it can be so difficult, I think, for us today to imagine a world where the opposite was the case. But then we do have to ask ourselves this, that if fighting today in those tight ranks is such an alien concept to us, and it's so clearly a bad idea within the framework of modern-day warfare, well then why would soldiers ever need to be trained to not do so? No, not to say that men without training will march in formation, but like, why would we ever need to train soldiers to not clump together when it's so obviously a bad idea? I mean, don't they realize that keeping a bit of distance between them would actively make not only them, but also their unit that much safer? I mean, are these guys just complete morons before they're trained? Well, of course not. There's a reason why people tend to huddle together in stressful situations, which is to be found in simple human psychology. And it's also a reason why, given all the material considerations that I've already discussed in the previous videos, it's also a reason why fighting in lines, historically speaking, made so much sense. When people are in danger, for the most part, and especially when we're talking about a danger that you can't directly fight back against, like, a line of musketeers while you're marching to get into position, for example, well, naturally, we attempt to avoid that danger. We'll duck behind something, we'll try to put something between us and the enemy, and of course, we'll try not to be quite so alone. We'll try not to be so exposed in the face of that danger, even if that exposure would technically be the thing that makes us safer. It's that herding, that schooling mentality. If I'm marching up with a bayonet fixed towards an enemy who is actively shooting at me, well then having all the others around me is going to make me feel like I have support in a stressful situation. And more cynically, perhaps, it also means that there are going to be a lot more targets for those enemies to choose from. Whereas if I'm approaching the enemy line, pretty much feeling at least all alone with the nearest guys a few arms lengths away from me, well, in combat, those few arm lengths are going to feel an awfully lot longer than it really is. Just like, if I'm charging 50 yards, if I'm under fire, it's going to feel like an awful lot further than 50 yards, really more like a mile, maybe. Being alone, feeling exposed, open to the enemies that are just opposite, and leveling their muskets right at me specifically, as if I had a target painted on my chest. And of course, for reasons previously discussed, if the enemy is in close order, that problem's only going to get worse. There's going to be a lot of muskets leveling down right towards, no guy over there, no guy over there, right towards me. And that feeling of solitude might also allow one's thoughts, one's emotions to fester, to dwell on what's about to happen, the possibility of becoming a casualty. Whereas, when a soldier is standing in tight ranks as part of a large formation, it's a lot easier for them to get swept up in that group mentality, the encouragement, the frenzy, the zeal that comes with it all. You feel safer, you feel more protected by being a part of the group, the larger picture. You're not a specific lone target anymore, and when you meet the enemy, you're going to be supported by all the troops all around you because they're in your immediate vicinity, able to lend you that aid. If you're wounded, they can help you. If your weapon has a malfunction, they can cover you. And the closer you are to the rest of your unit, the less individual worry you might have. And on the other hand, if any of the soldiers in those tighter formations attempts to flee or begins to panic, well then the others all around him can help to steady his nerves, keeping him fighting. Or at the absolute worst, they can even threaten him to make sure that he keeps in his position, doesn't threaten the rest of the unit by running away. As usual with these sorts of videos, I'd like to read to you an amazing example of exactly that kind of thing, once again from the Recollections of Rifleman Harris, this particular story coming from Harris's experience during the Second Battle of Copenhagen in 1807. I felt so much exhilarated that I could hardly keep back, and was checked by the commander of the company, Captain Leach, who called me by name to keep my place. About this time, my front-rank man, a tall fellow named Jack Johnson, showed a disposition as though the firing had on him an effect the reverse of what it had on many others of the company, for he seemed inclined to hang back, and once or twice turned around in my face. I was a rear-rank man, and porting my piece in the excitement of the moment, I swore that if he did not keep his ground, I would shoot him dead on the spot, so that he found it would be quite as dangerous for him to return as to go on. After all, morale in this case is a double-edged sword, and if a corps is poorly disciplined, well then it only takes one man to break and run for the entire line to follow him in a rout. It may also be worth pointing out that at this time, the rifles were advancing in a much looser order. They weren't shoulder to shoulder. They had a lot more space between each individual file. But still, every man would have his file partner, both to obviously maintain steady rates of fire with, firing by files or however they were doing it individually at that time, but it helps to maintain a rate of fire to protect them physically, but it also has that morale purpose, both positive, like, hey buddy, we're gonna stay back here, we're not gonna keep in formation, keep calm, and negative, you turn around, I'm gonna shoot you myself. Harris continues in his account to explain that actually when he made this threat, there was a lieutenant nearby and he was able to overhear it. But rather than punish Harris for the threat, he actually found that his reputation in the company was much improved afterwards, whereas that of Mr. Johnson, the man he threatened, was soon ruined, and he was transferred out of the company. But the ability to check, or at least to control fear, isn't the only factor here. Harris's quote, again, speaks to the opposite, that if a man's morale is too good so that he's outright enthusiastic for battle, the use of formations then and file partners alongside officers in close proximity means that they can tamp down that excitement and keep everyone in their proper place. Just as the men all around you can keep you from running away, they can keep you from moving too far ahead and breaking up the formation. Although, with all of that, we're sort of starting to veer into the territory of the last video in this series about communications and maneuverability on the battlefield. So if you want to hear me rant more about like all those elements, as well as like just the physical space that units take up on battlefields, things like that, then you can go and watch that previous video. But we'll change tack for now. If, for example, you're dealing with a large force of conscripts who aren't all that experienced in combat and are much more likely to turn tail and run for that reason, well then one of the best formations that you can employ them in would be a very dense, long column of attack, where the average soldier in the middle of a very large, forest of men, they're physically not going to have anywhere to go. All the people around him will be able to physically prevent them from doing anything other than their duty, to march forward to the attack. And in that situation, the only guys you really have to worry about are the ones on the flanks and the ones at the very front. And you can pack that with the more, experienced, the more professional soldiers, in which case. Whereas in a line of, just 2 or 4 men thick, much longer and thinner formation, or pretty much anyone along that line can break and run regardless of where they are. Typically, the thinner your formation and the looser your order, the more training, the more experience you want your men to have. Which is also why in many armies, the light infantry were typically supposed to be some of the most experienced, intelligent, and independently minded troops, whereas the conscripts or militia or anything like that, they're always going to be packed much closer together, and they're never going to be defending the army's flanks if it could be helped. And this topic also bleeds into my other videos about firepower and the use of bayonets, and of course the defense against cavalry, in that because being in a strong line helps to make all of those things far more efficient, it's also going to improve the soldiers' morale, their mentality going into those very serious scenarios. If they know that they're packing more firepower than a more dispersed enemy is, if they know that the opposing cavalry isn't going to be able to effectively charge them because they're in those strong ranks, and if they know that should it come to a melee fight, then they're going to be part of a large wall of steel that the enemy can't get around, where all their buddies can support and reinforce them and such, well then all of that is going to help to reassure the soldier and help to prevent them from trying to run away. And that, I think, is what makes this issue of battlefield psychology, of morale, so important to this discussion particularly. Because, yes, ultimately, the reasons why soldiers fought in lines to begin with were primarily material. They were tactical. And the moment that material reality changed, the aforementioned mortars, small arms fire, rapid small arms fire, things like that, when fighting in lines was no longer just physically possible, like realistically, then yes, the soldiers began to shift away from such strict linear formations. But the issue of morale, it's kind of fluid here. It goes both ways. The higher morale was both aided by the earlier material conditions, which made linear warfare necessary, and it's also the thing which actually made those tactics possible. If the soldiers weren't convinced that their square would hold against the charge, then it wouldn't. At its core, like so much of warfare, it's a question of give and take. It's also why when we ask ourselves questions like why soldiers fought in lines, there really isn't any one singular answer, because everything sort of bleeds into everything else. The seeming madness that was linear warfare was complicated, it was nuanced, and indeed, it was necessary. Now thank you all for watching, and particularly to those glorious members of the Native Oak on Patreon, without whose support this video would not have been possible. Thank you also to those of you who watch these videos early on the far more creator-friendly YouTube alternative, Recast TV. It's a great help when you do so. If you're interested in any other ways to help support my work, or if you'd like to learn more about those situations, and as well if you'd like to learn more with a free primary source library, well then you can do all of that and probably more over at nativeoak.org. And until the next time, my dear viewer, I am and I shall remain your most humble and obedient of servants.